The James Webb Telescope is the most powerful space telescope ever built. It was launched in December 21. It came online last July, and we're just starting to get the first images of space that it's being able to take. It's astonishing. The resolution and the detail and the distance that it is able to see is unlike anything we have ever seen before. And it is a breathtaking experience to see the stars with an intensity and a detail that has never been possible before. Galaxies without number, each full of stars, each of which is a solar system like ours, filled with planets and moons, all working in perfect order. You cannot help but wonder. And wonder, says Socrates, is where wisdom begins. Wisdom begins in wonder, he says. It is how we learn. It inspires exploration and discovery. And did you hear in that wonderful Psalm 8? It's a psalm literally full of wonder. And it's a wonder that leads us on a journey. The psalmist wrote, "When I consider your heavens, the work of your hands, the moon and the stars which you have set in place, what is man that you are mindful of him?" Because I know you've had this experience. Stargazing leads us to another really very important realization, and that is how apparently small and insignificant we are in the grand scheme of things. It's a healthy challenge to that innate human desire to be at the center of the universe. I think one of the lovely things about being a child is that kind of is true, isn't it? A good childhood is one where everything does slightly revolve around you. But growing up is an important process of realizing that's not the case. Getting to nursery school, having to play well with other children. And I'm afraid our world is slightly blighted by people who don't seem to have ever really learned that lesson, that they're not the center of the universe. But of course, we are not. And that wonder leads us to discovering bigger worlds around us, bigger worlds in terms of the communities that we are part of. Bigger worlds in terms of the scale and the scope and the grandeur of this universe. Wonder leads to bigger worlds. I've often wondered whether about the effect of the increased urbanization of Western life. You know, most people now live in cities, and if you've spent time in a city, you'll know that actually it's quite hard to see the stars now, just because of all of the pollution and the light and all of those things. And it means that most of us don't see the stars very often. And I'm not suggesting that the kind of rise in popular atheism is just about light pollution. But there is a correlation. Not being confronted with the grandeur of things every night, well, I think it has an effect on us. I think there's something wonderful about the humility that comes from realizing how apparently insignificant we are. And by rights, we should be utterly inconsequential. And yet I think we realize increasingly that we're not. We know that actually each and every life matters profoundly. And when we lose someone that we love, the hole that leaves is hard to comprehend. Was it John Donne said, "Every man's death diminishes me, for I am involved in mankind. Therefore send not to know for whom the bell tolls, it tolls for thee." Where does it come from? This worth and dignity that every human life has. We should wonder where it comes from. Wonder should make us look at ourselves more closely. To be alive, to be human, is actually one of the most astonishing things in the universe. It's funny, the more we look out there, the more we realize how utterly astonishing this place is. There was an amazing moment in the celebration of the 50th anniversary of the moon landings. And there's some great new footage which most of us hadn't seen before. And it's of the astronauts on the moon, having accomplished one of the great feats in human history. And they're standing there, they're on the surface of the moon, and then, you know what happens? The Earth comes up over the horizon. The most beautiful thing you've ever seen. And everybody just stops and realizes that they're standing on a dead rock. And there is something, a jewel beyond price. What we are part of here is of immeasurable worth. To be alive, to be human, is one of the most remarkable things in the whole universe. We have this dignity, this worth, this amazing quality. And the psalmist says, it's because we're made in God's image. Verse 5, you have made us just a little lower than the heavenly beings and crowned us with glory and honor. You see, it's not just the order and the magnificence and the scale of the universe which should cause us to wonder. It's that human beings are astonishing. Astonishing. We are made in the image of God, and it might just be that the brightest light in the whole universe is the person sitting right next to you now. That dignity, that being made in God's image, brings with it a very significant responsibility. Verse 6, you made us ruler over the works of your hands. We have this responsibility to essentially, if we're made in God's image, to do his work, to steward and care for creation and for other human beings with compassion and generosity. And when we fail, which we seem to do all of the time, when we allow or even participate in the exploitation of creation or of other people, or when we allow greed or corruption or selfishness to mar our world, then we are failing in that task that we are called to. But ultimately, where that wonder should lead us to is where the psalm begins and also ends. Did you notice it's the same verse, beginning and ending? Because ultimately, that self-reflection, that reflection on the scale and grandeur of the universe and the remarkable place that human beings have in it, should lead us to worship. The psalmist says, O Lord our God, how majestic is your name in all the earth. He says, you have set your glory above the heavens. Because, of course, if this is creation, how much greater, how much more glorious is the Creator? The glory of the stars, the remarkable fact of being human, is just a reflection of God. Ultimately, our realization about how things are should lead us to worship. The most profound experiences in our life do give us a desire to express something of that joy and wonder and gratitude. I was with a young couple who just had their first child yesterday, and they were overflowing with joy and wonder in the midst of the tiredness and the sleepless nights of what that they had been blessed to be part of. And they wanted to find words. We need to find words for the wonder and glory of this universe. Worship matters. I acknowledge, and I know personally, it doesn't always come easily. That for many people, one of the big obstacles about church is our worship. People will often say, I love being part of the community. Quite like preaching, quite like listening to thoughts about the Bible. But in actual fact, singing worship to God is a real obstacle. And I think we need to be really sensitive to that. Our worship mustn't put unnecessary obstacles in the way of people, on the journey that they are part of. But that journey often needs to start by going downwards. And that it needs to lead us to humility. You know, often the obstacle to worship is our foolish pride and the ability to get off our high horse and put aside that pride which shackles us and limits our lives, and discovering our right place is before God as his children. Worship matters a great deal. It's just good for us, you know. It's not just that it's about feeling good, although I hope it does do that sometimes. It can be a real joy to sing with others. I know you've had that experience. And there are sort of nice side effects. It's kind of therapeutically good, you know. Statistically, singing together is really good for people. But it is more than that. I'd like to suggest that worship is about taking our right place in creation. Letting go of that childish idea that somehow we're the center of the universe. It's recognizing that there is a God who has created all of this. This place, this universe is no accident, and that in relationship with him, we find our right place. And it's especially important in hard times, especially important when we are struggling, when life is difficult, when we're going through things, because it reminds us of our place in the bigger scheme of things. It makes connection. It breaks the isolation. It reminds us that we're not supposed to be in control of all of this. One final thing to say, and this is in many ways a separate sermon all by itself, so I won't do it now. But one of the things the psalmist says, do you see in verse 2? He said, "From the lips of children and influence you have ordained praise because of your enemies to silence the foe and the avenger." And there's something else about God to wonder at. It's not just the scale of creation or the remarkable experience of being human. It's his works, it's his purposes in history. Because in many ways, the greatest events in the history of the world are, his astonishing actions and his delight in sort of subverting the powers of this world, turning things upside down, to save the world through a child born in a manger. That's the greatest thing for which we worship God. We worship God because we take delight in what he's done in our lives, in the lives of those around us, and in our world. Socrates said, "Wisdom begins in wonder." When we consider this world that we are part of, the works of God's hand, we should be able to find words to express that worship. And that's something I think we need to be intentional about. We do it together as we gather on a Sunday here in church. But it's something for you as well to be doing day by day, in whatever simple way that is appropriate for you. We talked last term about praying the Lord's Prayer each day, that simple act of worship to say, "Hallowed be your name, your kingdom come, your will be done." Or to read a psalm day by day, or to sing a song, or simply to give thanks at the end of the day for the blessings that you have experienced. Worship is how we remember who we are, what we're created to be, the dignity and the worth which we have, and our right place in creation. Wisdom begins in wonder, and I think wonder leads us to worship. O Lord, our Lord, how majestic is your name in all the earth.